In this video, we're going to take a look at reporting and analytics inside Streamtime. So we'll start by taking you into the jobs screen, and in here you'll see a list of all the jobs that you're working in. It's also the area where you can look at time that you've tracked, expenses based on jobs, quotes that are based and connected to jobs, and invoices for jobs as well. And there's also a tile view, kind of like a Netflix view, which shows you recent work that you've got, stuff that's coming up soon, and stuff that you've recently completed. Maybe that needs invoicing. But I want to focus primarily on this screen here, the list of jobs. Over on the right hand side, you can see there's a pull-out bar which contains favorites, filters, and columns. And I'll start with columns. These are the columns essentially on the left, and the checkbox shows me which ones I've got turned on. So for example, if I don't want to see the used and planned showing through there, I can turn it off. Or if I prefer to have the company in front of the job name, I can just pick it up and drag and change the order of how these columns are present on my screen. If you're tracking time in Streamtime and invoicing out of Streamtime, it's possible to see the profit on a job. Now I'm going to just turn off a couple of these columns because I want to focus specifically around measuring profit and essentially the monetary value of the jobs and how they're tracking. And I want to talk through what some of these fields over here on the right mean and how we calculate them. So firstly, the use cell. Let's just take a look at this Blue Note job here. It's this figure here, 11,700. And if I click on that, I can see where that comes from. This figure is the total amount of time spent on the job multiplied by the hourly rate for each of your team members. And that essentially gives you a figure which we call use cell. And it's essentially the value of all the time that you've spent on the job, the potential sell price you might call it. Now there's also used cost, and again we'll come in and take a look at where that comes from. That's this figure down here. It's the total cost for each of your employees based on their hourly rate cost. Now you can set that figure up for each of your employees in the team section, and you can see here it's under cost rate. Just keep in mind, only administrators can give access to viewing the cost rate information. It's otherwise hidden, and it's essentially the bum on seat price of having each of your team members do the work. So you have to work that figure out yourself, but once you plug it in, it allows us to get some of this profit information to come through, or potential profit. So we have the used cost, we have the used cell, and we also have another column which is of course the used profit. Cell minus cost equals profit. Now this is more of a projected profit, assuming that you're actually selling everything based on time. Not everybody works that way, and not all of the work that you do gets invoiced, which is why we have the option to turn on an invoice column. This column here now shows me what I've actually invoiced to the client. So very quickly I've been able to generate a report that shows me what it's cost me to produce the job, what I should be selling the job for, what that potential profit was going to be, and then what I actually invoiced. At the moment, I'm sorting it by company, but I could sort it any way that I like, just by clicking on the columns. By job name, for instance. In this case, I'll keep it by company. Now, in addition to which fields I want to display and the order at which I want to display them, I can come across to the filters section, and I can put some filter constraints on this information as well. So at the moment, it's filtering all of the jobs that are active, essentially. Active, completed, or don't contain any items. It's ignoring everything that's been archived. So this is essentially all of my work in progress that I'm looking at here. But I might only want to pick up a couple of companies in this report. Let's say company 3M or Apple or Adobe. So now I've set up a report exactly how I want it. I can save this report as a favorite. Because these are my clients, I'm going to call this one my WIP report. So I'm going to click save. And now over in the favorites, you'll see that my WIP report has come through. Now we've provided you a few different ones in here. Active jobs, for example, team time this week, jobs due in the next 7 days, and so on and so forth. My WIP report, though, has just been created, and it's here now for me anytime I want it. So there's no end to the number of different types of reports that you could generate, and you can generate them from some of these other screens as well. So maybe you're in the expense screen and you want to generate some expense-based reports, or you're in the quote screen and you want to generate reports based on the quote information only. A lot more detailed information on quotes here, a lot more detailed information on expenses here. But over in the job screen, there's probably the most information. I just want to come back to the columns section and talk about where some of these other fields come from. I'll just turn these ones off, and I'll also turn off all these filters. So total versus budget can be viewed numerically or graphically. In addition to that, you can turn them on as separate elements as well. So you've got a lot of flexibility in which ones you want to use. This is the same as these two figures down here. So the budget is going to be either the number that you've punched in, like in this case, or if you've got quotes on the job that have been approved, they become the budget figure. And the total is based on all of the items that you've created, the total potential sell value for that job. So that covers those fields. Used versus planned, including the used cell. And the planned cell, which is this one here, I'll just turn this guy off. If I just jump into one of these jobs like this one, it's this figure here, the used versus planned. This one here is the used, so it's the sell value or the potential sell value for each of the clients that you have based on their hourly rate. And the planned is based on, well, surprisingly, the plan. And that's calculated down here based on the number of hours times the rate. So in this case, it's 800. You can also view that information as hours if you prefer. And you can view them separately as hours if you prefer as well. Total sell I've already covered off, and total sell equals the expenses cell plus the used cell. So I'll just present these a little clearer. So this is the potential sell rate for all the time that you've spent on the job in this column, and this is the total amount of all of the expenses that you might have added to the job. So if I jump into here, I can see 2,700 is my total sell price for the expenses that I've got. It's not the cost. You can include the cost of those expenses if you like. That's this guy here, and I'll just put it next to it. So I can see here, here's my expenses cost, here's my expenses sell, and you can actually also see the profit and the expenses alone. So I'll just turn some of this other stuff off, and you can see the cost of my expenses, here's what I'm selling them for, and there's my profit essentially. Okay, now we also have the used profit, which is made up from used sell minus used cost. So used sell minus used cost equals used profit. It is the potential sell price for all the time that I've spent on the job based on people's sell hourly rates, less what that time has cost me based on users' cost hourly rates, and that essentially gives me my used profit figure. Now that's not the total profit, of course, because there are also expenses related into a job, and we do have the total profit. So here's total profit. And total profit is the amount you've invoiced excluding tax. Let's put it over here. Minus the total cost. So this is the total amount that you've invoiced on the job. This is the total cost. Now total cost I covered earlier. That's the total cost of all your expenses plus the cost of all of your labor. So the amount I invoice minus the total cost, and that is how we're generating this total profit. We have a few other fields in here as well that can be useful for creating your own reports. Job status, labels, and team, to name three. Labels in particular are really handy because you can tag jobs with specific codes. For example, there might be a range of jobs that you're working on and you want to report on those separately. So we've got some here that are for branding, for example. So I can use the filters and I can say, I want to just see all the branding labeled stuff. So now I've just pulled out the branding only stuff. And of course, when I combine that with some of the other stuff here, like my budget, my invoiced amount, job status, team, I can get the reports looking exactly how I want them. If you want to clear the information, just clear it up the top here. And remember, you can always come back to these favorite reports anytime you like. So that's a quick introduction to how we do reports in Streamtime.